The day Arisha realized she had fallen in love, it wasn't magical. It was messy, painful, and terrifying, because the man she loved was the one person she was never supposed to see that way. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and love that grows in the most unexpected places, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Echoes the Stories. Your support keeps stories like this alive. It started on an ordinary afternoon drenched in sunlight, the kind that makes everything look softer than it really is. Arisha was 23, fresh out of university, still holding on to dreams that hadn't yet met reality. She had always been called innocent, not in a childish way, but in the way she trusted people too easily, saw good where others saw warning signs, and believed that love, when it came, would be simple. Her best friend Zoya was the opposite. Sharp, bold, and fiercely independent, she lived in a small, slightly worn house at the edge of the city. Arisha had spent countless afternoons there, laughing over tea, whispering secrets, and pretending life wasn't as complicated as it felt. But that day, something was different. Zoya wasn't home yet, so Arisha stepped inside quietly, familiar with the place. The house carried a quiet heaviness she had never noticed before. It wasn't messy, just tired. The walls seemed to hold stories of long nights and silent struggles. That's when she saw him. He was sitting on the floor beside a small child, carefully fixing a broken toy car with steady, patient hands. The sunlight fell across his face, highlighting the faint lines of exhaustion etched into his features. He wasn't old, maybe early 30s, but life had clearly been unkind to him. This was Samir, Zoya's older brother. Arisha had seen him before, but never really noticed him. He was always in the background, quiet, distant, someone who existed but didn't belong in her world. But now, watching him gently wipe the tears from his little daughter's face, something shifted inside her. It wasn't sudden love. It was something deeper, quieter, a feeling that unsettled her. Samir was a single father. His wife had passed away 2 years ago, leaving him with a daughter barely old enough to understand loss. Since then, he had been working odd jobs, struggling to keep the household running, sacrificing everything for his child. He wasn't the kind of man Arisha had imagined for herself. He didn't have charm or confidence or the easy laughter she was used to. He carried responsibility like a weight on his shoulders, and his silence often spoke louder than words. And yet, something about him pulled her in. Days turned into weeks, and Arisha found herself visiting Zoya more often. At first, she told herself it was just friendship. But slowly, her attention shifted. She noticed the way Samir always woke up early to prepare breakfast, even if he hadn't slept much. The way he would skip meals so his daughter could have more. The way he never complained, even when life gave him every reason to. It made her heart ache. But it also scared her. Because loving someone like him meant stepping into a life she wasn't prepared for. People around her had expectations. Her parents dreamed of a stable, comfortable future for her, someone educated, financially secure, someone who could give her the life they believed she deserved. Samir didn't fit any of those expectations. He was poor. Struggling. Burdened. And he came with a child. Arisha tried to ignore her growing feelings, convincing herself it was just sympathy. But the more she tried to stay away, the stronger the pull became. It wasn't about saving him. It wasn't about fixing anything. It was about the quiet way he existed, the strength he carried without asking for recognition. One evening, everything changed. It had been raining heavily, the kind that floods streets and slows time. Arisha had stayed over at Zoya's house because it was too dangerous to travel back home. The power went out, leaving the house in darkness except for a flickering candle. That's when she heard it. A soft, muffled sound, like someone trying not to cry. She followed it to the small balcony and found Samir standing there, his back turned. For the first time, he didn't look strong. He looked broken. He didn't notice her at first. His shoulders trembled slightly, and his hand gripped the railing as if it was the only thing holding him together. Arisha froze. She had never seen him like this. This man who carried everything without complaint was finally cracking under the weight of it all. Something inside her broke too. Without thinking, she stepped forward and gently placed her hand on his arm. He turned, startled, his eyes quickly wiping away the tears he didn't want anyone to see. In that moment, there were no words. But everything changed. After that night, there was no going back. Arisha could no longer pretend her feelings weren't real. She had seen the truth behind Samir's quiet strength, the pain, the loneliness, the endless sacrifices, and it only made her care more. But reality soon caught up. Zoya was the first to notice. At first, she laughed it off, thinking it was a harmless crush. But when she realized Arisha's feelings were deeper, her expression changed. There was concern in her eyes, and something else, fear. She knew her brother's life. She knew the struggles, the sacrifices, the constant uncertainty. And she didn't want Arisha, her best friend, to walk into that kind of life without understanding the cost. Arisha tried to explain that it wasn't about logic or comfort. It was about how she felt. But Zoya wasn't convinced. And then came the hardest part, her family. When Arisha finally gathered the courage to tell them, the reaction was exactly what she had feared. Shock. Disapproval. Anger. They couldn't understand why she would choose someone like Samir when she had better options. They saw his situation, not his heart. They saw his struggles, not his strength. They told her she was being naive. That she would regret it. That love alone wasn't enough. And for the first time in her life, Arisha felt torn between two worlds. The safe, predictable life everyone wanted for her. And the uncertain, challenging life her heart was leading her toward. Samir, on the other hand, kept his distance. He had noticed the change in her too. He wasn't blind. But instead of moving closer, he pulled away. Because he knew. He knew what his life looked like from the outside. He knew what he could, and couldn't, offer. And the last thing he wanted was to drag someone like Arisha into his struggles. One afternoon, he finally spoke. Not with anger, but with quiet honesty. He told her she deserved better. A life without constant worry. A future without burdens she didn't choose. He told her she was young, that she didn't understand what she was giving up. And that broke her more than anything else. Because for the first time, she realized the biggest obstacle wasn't society, or her family, or even her own fears. It was him. He didn't believe he was worth loving. Days passed, heavy and uncertain. Arisha felt like she was losing something she hadn't even fully had yet. But instead of giving up, something inside her grew stronger. She began to understand that love wasn't about choosing the easiest path. It was about choosing the right one. Even if it was difficult. Even if it required sacrifice. Even if it meant standing alone for a while. And so, she made a decision. She stopped trying to convince everyone else, and started showing them instead. She became more involved in Samir's world, not as a savior, but as someone who genuinely cared. She spent time with his daughter, not out of obligation, but because she wanted to. She stood by him during difficult days, offering support without making him feel weak. Slowly, things began to change. Not dramatically. Not overnight. But in small, meaningful ways. Samir started to trust her presence. His daughter began to laugh more. The house that once felt heavy started to feel warmer. And eventually, even Zoya saw it. She saw the difference Arisha was making, not by changing their lives, but by becoming a part of them. And that's when her resistance softened. Arisha's family took longer. But love has a quiet persistence that logic cannot defeat. They began to see that this wasn't a phase. It wasn't impulsive. It was real. And more importantly, it was making her stronger, not weaker. Before we reach the end, if this story is touching your heart even a little, take a moment to like, comment, and share. Stories like these remind us what love truly means. And just before the ending, here's a special request. Comment below, "Love chooses courage," if you believe that real love is about standing strong even when it's hard. In the end, Arisha didn't get a perfect life. She got something real. There were still struggles. Financial challenges didn't disappear overnight. There were days filled with exhaustion, moments of doubt, and sacrifices she never imagined making. But there was also something else. A quiet happiness. The kind that comes from knowing you chose with your heart, and stood by that choice. Samir never became a perfect man. But he became someone who allowed himself to be loved. And Arisha. She was no longer the innocent girl who believed love would be easy. She became someone stronger. Someone braver. Someone who understood that sometimes, the most unexpected love stories are the ones that change you forever. And if this story stayed with you, if it made you feel something real, don't forget to engage with the video. Your support helps keep these stories alive, and who knows, maybe someone out there needs to hear this today.